Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Old Women Who Write. Um, I hope nobody ever gets offended by my use of the word old. Just think of it as, say, older than 15 years old. Who knows? Just make up whatever age you want to make up to define old. Today, I'm interviewing a woman whose book I read quite recently. Her publicist wrote to me and asked me to to read it and see if I would interview her. And of course, I'm always happy to read new authors or older authors, particularly. And I'm so glad I did because I really enjoyed this. Oh, no, enjoy is not the real right word. I love this book because of its honesty, because of the good writing, because of the author's ability to write without a hint of self pity, despite the circumstances she's describing. So I want to introduce you to Babs Walters. Before I do, though, I want to say the topic in the book and our topic for today, in large part, has to do with child sexual abuse. So if that is causes you to have emotions, if it triggers you in any way, I just want you to know it ahead of time. So listen as you can listen. I hope you can take it all in, but you decide what works for you. Okay, so Babs, welcome.
Thank you, Jean. You
Yeah,
know, my middle name is Jean, so we're connected in more ways than
yes,
one.
we are. I didn't realize that. I hear your accent. You got to be from the Northeast somewhere.
New York.
New York, yes, I could hear it. I didn't want to specify, but yeah. Well, welcome. Babs, this is your first book, am I right?
No, actually, it's my second.
Oh, it is. Oh, I
My
didn't know that.
my first book was a business book.
Oh,
When I went into my own business, when I left corporate America, I decided to take 30 years of experience that I had in training executives and managers, and I wrote a book called Your Employees Did What? Seven, Seven Strategies for Driving Workplace Performance.
oh, wow. Well,
I,
this could not be any different than the
right.
book. For those of you that now, I know it's going to be backwards on your screen, but it's called Facing the Jaguar, and the subtitle is A Memoir of Courage and Confrontation. This is Bab's book. I would encourage everyone to read it. I want to say the first thing is, Babs, I wrote a memoir, and in it was some materials about my sexual abuse as a child. And since then, that part of the book has, although I had 65 chapters, and this was only three of them, when I was presenting, going around doing a book circuit and presenting, it was those chapters that women wanted to talk about after my book presentation. And every one. So now I'm giving presentations called Don't Keep Your Secrets.
Oh, okay.
And given that, I wanted to read, if you don't mind, um, when you first open your book, you have a poem there. Is it okay with you if I read that? Would
Absolutely.
you prefer to read it? Either.
No, I would rather hear you read it,
Okay.
Jean.
Okay. It says, this book is dedicated to all my sisters who were obedient and loyal to their families, who kept the secrets they were told not to share, who could not find someone to listen or someone who could hear them, who held the pain inside themselves for far too long, who felt all alone. Here's to all the family secret keepers. Here's to telling. Yeah, yeah. You kept secrets for 70 years or
Yes.
close to. Talk to me about who was your abuser.
Well, both of my parents were abusers, but
Yes.
my father was the one who sexually initiated me.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's important to know, Jean, that this book could not have been written when I originally tried to write it 40 years ago
Oh,
because I was in so much pain and I was not focused in a healthy way on what I wanted to say. So it took a lot of therapy for me to get to the place where, since you read the book, you know, at the end, I go through the research that I've done on my parents'
Yeah.
stories that they told me, and I am able to better understand where they came from. I don't forgive what happened to me, and obviously, I'm grateful that whatever it is about me that was separate from them, I was able to break the chain. But so I don't want people to think that, you know, you leave home and then this thing is over for you,
Yes. I
even
want,
though that's what I thought was going to happen.
I wanted to say something about maybe getting ahead of ourselves. I don't know. The end of the book, when you talked about the research that you did into your parents' lives, I found this remarkable that you did this. I mean, much of the book is about the years of abuse and the years of keeping the secrets and the years of of the effect of the long-term
The damage.
abuse on your life, the damage, right? For most people, or let me take it back. I think the majority of people would not have attempted to find, why did my father do that? Why did my mother behave as my mother behaved? Encouraging physical abuse of you sometimes to protect herself. You know, I don't know. People either say, well, they did it and I forgive or not forgive, but you went further and I really admired that. Do you think that was an important step for you on your way to sanity, on your way to health?
Well, I didn't know it at the time, so that was not my reason for doing it.
Mhm.
I had I took a course, you know, write your memoir in 6 months course. And one of the coaches I was working with said to me, even though your story would make a Netflix miniseries, there was so much going on, nobody wants to read an 80-year-old biography about an unknown person. If you're famous, like Barbara Streisand, she could have 900 pages or whatever she has in hers, but nobody's going to want to know about Babs. And she said, you really need to look for a universal truth because your story needs to be told, but only people who have the same experience will be able to relate to it unless you give it something that everyone can relate to.
Yes.
And that's when I thought about the family secret keepers. Because anytime I start to talk about what happened to me, people come up and share their secrets. Maybe they didn't have an incest or a child sexual abuse,
Yes.
but there was a suicide in their family. There was a bankruptcy. There was the aunt who went to the mental institution. There
Yes.
was an alcoholic parent. So that's why my point of view started to shift.
Hmm.
How am I going to find the universal in this?
Hmm.
And I read a book called Adult Children of Immature Parents by Dr. Lindsay Gibson.
Hmm.
And her work was so brilliant that I started to consider, you know, my parents are both gone. I'm not going to get to the bottom line. And I don't think they would have told me the truth if they were around anyway. But I could use some creative perhapsing. I could ask the people that were still alive. I could look for the reform school that they said they went to. And I could start putting some of those pieces together.
Hmm.
And when I did that, I didn't mean to forgive them and I didn't mean to heal. I was trying to give my book some value.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the more grace I could offer them, the more I could understand where they came from, the more I could accept myself and get over some of the guilt and shame that I was still carrying. So I gave myself a gift, Jean.
Yes, I see that. I hear that. Yeah. Okay, let's go back because I went from the first page to the end of the book. At what age did the sexual abuse start with your father?
I was 11 years old.
And what was it built up? You know, did it happen gradually? And
Well, it's hard for me to actually remember a lot of it because
yeah.
I so disassociated. But um, the truth is that my parents had a very tumultuous relationship throughout their lives.
Hmm.
They were married for 72 years. And um, my father went to that reform school because he had anger issues. He had built a bomb in high school. And then, as you know from the book, when he went into the army, they trained him to be a sniper and to kill with one shot. So here you have this man who's constantly angry. And then you have this woman who was sent away because this child, because she was promiscuous. And I'm not even sure that anybody sends kids to a reform school for being promiscuous these days. But, my father gets drafted into World War II. And when he comes home, my mother's replaced him. She has another man in the house.
Hmm.
And that's been their dance. Now, as they matured, they mellowed a lot, but that I was no longer in the house because my parents were teenagers when they had me.
Hmm.
So I was out of the house pretty early. Um, so it was a really, I call it a war zone in my wherever we were living, it was a war zone.
Yes.
You didn't know what would set things off. And of course, the first time that my father touched me in an inappropriate way, he had his guns out. They were laying on the night table next to the bed, and the bullets were out. And he told me that if I ever tell anybody our secret, that he would kill me. And I believed it because he almost killed me with his beatings. And then again, when my sister and I would come home with our test papers from school and we would hang them on the refrigerator when we got 100, my father would come back from the gun range with his um, targets. It would be an black outline of a human torso, and there would be one black dot right in the middle of the center of his forehead, and he'd hang those up with us. So clearly, there was a lot of dysfunction going on, and the only way that I knew to escape from what was happening was to disassociate.
Hmm.
So as the his visits to me became worse and more threatening, I just went far into the jungle.
This
And
is
I
where the title of the book comes in.
right.
Yes.
Yeah, one of my viewers said that, everybody has jaguars. Everybody has the demons that they run from. Um, I just happened to have that thread through my book of that was my dream. That was where I went.
Yes.
That's how I felt.
And for how long did the abuse continue?
Well, this is part of what caused the problem for me, Jean. It continued until I was 18 for 7 years. Um, and at some point, I knew it was wrong. And I started to feel like I must be a bad person. And I must have done something wrong. And I think this is a common thing when children live in a home where there's a lot of fighting.
Hmm.
They always try to make things better. So I tried to be more parental. I tried to be more responsible. And of course, I was human. I was not perfect.
Right.
So I lived with a lot of guilt for letting it go on that long.
Right. When did you first tell anyone that this was happening?
Well, I had a best friend when I was 14, and she came up to me one day in the hall in school and said, I have a terrible family secret I need to tell you. Meet me afterwards in our secret place. Well, I have to tell you, I was almost happy because I thought, gee, maybe this is a secret initiation that all girls go through, and you're not supposed to tell anybody. I didn't know. I was so naive, um, and damaged.
Yes.
So, of course, when we met and she told me her secret, it was not the same as mine.
Right.
And another 14-year-old who came from a troubled home didn't have any ideas of what to do.
But
So,
you told her.
yes.
Yes. When I read that about your friend, I thought how lovely, how fortunate it was that you had this friend
Yeah.
because she accepted you and it.
And she tried to make it better. She
Yes.
came up with a very childlike, feeble solution.
Yeah.
We're going to start a club for kids that have troubled parents or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it
Right.
was an act of love. It clearly was.
Yeah. Was she the only person that you told at around, you were in high school then or junior high? I can't
I
remember.
was junior high, what they call middle school these days.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Was she the only person you told for?
I actually told one of my teachers in high school.
Hmm?
Uh, someone that I thought was a trustworthy human being. He used to pick up a bunch of the girls and take us to New Jersey to his house over the summer for the weekends. Um, he and his wife would make barbecue for us. And one of the nice things is that we would help his wife clean up the kind of things that our mothers used to have to yell at us to do, you know, like wash and dry the dishes and
I,
take out the garbage. But I I kind of respected him and her because they spoke to us like we were adults. You know, they spoke to us about dating and drinking. And one day when I came to school, I was having a really hard day. And he asked me what was going on. And I said, I don't even know how to tell you. And he said, meet me at 3 o'clock. Come down to my office. We'll work it out together. So I went to his office. He locked the door when I got in there. And I thought, first, it was a little bit of a, hearing that click was like a little bit of a light bulb went off. But then I thought, oh, we're going to talk about something private. It's good that he closed the door.
mhm.
And so when I told him what was happening, he unbuttoned my blouse and he put his hands on my breast under my bra and started to fondle me. So I kind of shut down quite a bit after the my two.
Still brings emotion, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know that feeling, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jane.
Yeah,
You know, people don't realize there's not a whole lot you can say to someone except that you're sorry. This should not have happened to you. You didn't deserve it. You did nothing to cause it.
right.
And I'm so proud of you for being here today.
Hmm. Yeah, that is that is all, and that's good. I mean, that's good. Sometimes, particularly, I recently talked to a woman who was in her 80s who told me and said she had never told another soul. It
Wow.
happened to her at 7 years old. And sometimes it's the biggest gift you can give to whatever's appropriate. Hug them, hold them, tell them you're so, so sorry that happened to
Mhm.
them. You, it's the only thing to do, I think. Uh, but it's a big gift.
Right.
So it's not
It's a gift,
nothing.
it's a gift for both of you because
Absolutely.
it helps you give meaning and purpose to what happened to you,
Right.
that you can be there to inspire somebody else to speak out.
Yes. And another way it's a gift, I find, is that before she told me this, I had a number of interactions with her in a setting, and I didn't care for her particularly. You know, she was a Jesus person, and I'm not a Jesus person, right? It just, so I avoided.
Mhm.
Once that happened, I felt entirely different toward her.
Yeah.
She had touched me, and I had touched her,
Right.
and it completely changes. A vulnerable moment between two people is very powerful, very
And you have
powerful.
that sisterhood now
Yeah.
because you have
Yeah.
shared the
And
same.
it reminds us, I think, it's another gift to us. It reminds us that everyone has pain behind their eyes. You don't see it, on a day-to-day face that's on, but almost everyone has pain back there.
I believe that, yes.
Yeah, so do I. You had a sister, have
I
a
still
sister.
do. Yeah. Mhm.
This began happening to her also, no surprise, right?
Well, a couple of my therapists were really surprised, but when I got married and left home, I had no idea it was going to happen to her.
You were still innocent.
Well, no, I was in disassociation.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I remember my wedding day, I heard like this dungeon door clang shut, and I thought to myself, wow, you're never going to have a problem again. I don't know what kind of life I was living,
Oh
but
my,
so when I found out that my father had moved on to my sister, I had tried to adopt her, try to get her out of the house.
wow. And that was not successful. I mean,
It was pretty pathetic if you think about it. The rabbi who had married my husband and I, he was the only person I could think of to go to. He was a clergy. He would help me and know what to do. And he basically said, Jewish fathers don't do that. I'm mistaken and I'm misinterpreting affection for sex. I said, Rabbi, you just married us. I know the difference between sex and affection.
Yeah.
He said, I can't help you, and showed me to the door.
That was shocking to me when I read that. Absolutely shocking.
Well, you see, the thing that there seems to be a theme in the people that I told, Jean. So a lot of that has to do with who I thought I could trust.
Uh-huh.
And obviously, I wasn't reading signs well. I was seeing what I needed to see. Um, and that's been a big issue for me throughout my life. When the people who are supposed to love and take care of you
Right.
are the most untrustworthy,
Right.
you don't learn the lesson the right way the first time. So I hadn't realized that that was going to happen to my sister. And when I did, I went into warrior mode. You know, I was ready to get her out of the house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You said your parents were married for 70 whatever
Two
years,
years, yeah.
which means that once you left home, well, no, once you began to heal, once you went into therapy and began to heal, because what happened to you as a child had a great effect on your adult life, on your marriage, on your relationships, a huge effect. That combination of innocence and wanting to trust and had consequences through your
Right.
much of your adult life also. But yet you kept as much relationship as you could with your sister, and you were speaking to your mother and father about what happened to you at some point. Talk to me a little bit about that. What had you go to your father? What had you go to your mother
Mhm.
and talk to what happened to you as a child?
Well, my sister was the one who made the decision that we were going to sit with my father and ask him why he behaved the way he did. I absolutely did not want to do that.
I
I mean,
saw you were physically sick over.
I was terrified too. Yeah. And um, I was so frightened of doing it that I actually wrote my two children a letter explaining why they would never see me again because I was positive that he was going to kill us that evening.
He had threatened that the entire time, so of course,
Why not,
as an
right?
adult, you were terrified of that.
But I also had a tremendous guilt that I was carrying for not helping my sister, not being able to prevent it from happening to her.
Yes,
I kind of felt parental, like I had almost passed it on to her.
yes,
And so I did what I didn't want to do because I felt so guilty and I wanted to be there for my sister.
yes.
And basically, he gave us the background story of his life, why he felt it was okay for him to do the things that he did.
And he was being straight honest with you. You think he was telling
His
his
honesty, yes,
story, his version.
exactly. He basically told us that we were his chattel, that he was treated that way by his father, and if it was good enough for him, that's what a parent is supposed to do. He blamed everybody that he could pin to the fact that his that my mother was frigid, that somehow my mother was frigid, but she was sent away for being promiscuous. I mean, I think she had enough of his beatings and was not turned on to him, but um, he blamed his father for being a gangster. My sister and I asked him if he needed sex, why didn't he go to a woman his own age?
Hmm.
And he told us that he needed people who would love and trust him. And that was us.
He said that.
Yes. So everything that he said basically was an excuse.
Hmm.
And that basically gave us our foundation for where his head was at. He
Yes,
didn't see that he hurt us in any way, shape, or form. And when I got to that final chapter and I did my research into what happened to him, as you know, because you've read it,
yes.
um, he had a very traumatic experience when he was 5 years old.
Hmm.
And common research says that any child that would go through an experience like that would learn to shut off all their feelings and
Yes,
become a sociopath, be unable to feel for themselves so they couldn't feel for anybody else.
yes, yes, that makes
He
sense.
never really got that he hurt us.
Right. And what about your mother?
Well, my mother was a spoiled child because her father had married a woman very beneath him. And one day, when my grandmother was trying to teach her to peel potatoes because she was a teenager, he became physically violent with my grandmother. He opened the kitchen window and hung her backwards out of the window by her feet. And he said, "No children of mine will ever be a servant. We hire servants." And my mother went into a nervous reaction. She ended up in the hospital with something called St. Vitus stabs.
I remember hearing about that when I was a child. I haven't heard about it for years. I haven't heard that phrase.
Well, they actually changed the name to Sydenham's Korea, but they say that not too many people have it anymore because with all the medication that we have and the inoculations that we have, we help kids, except the kids in really third world countries.
Hmm.
But the prescribed treatment for St. Vitus dance at the time was 2 weeks in the hospital, complete bed rest. And I think my mother basically lived that way all her life,
Mm.
that if it got to be too much for her, she disappeared and she took time off and she took care of herself. And one of my therapists told me, Jean, that just because a woman can have a baby, give birth to a baby, doesn't mean that she has a maternal instinct. It's not natural, but some women just don't have it.
Yes.
And my mother clearly did not. She was a child all her life.
And she repeatedly invited harm to you by using you girls as a shield for her.
Well, I just have to say something to that because that's one of the things that I feel like I really learned in doing the adult children of immature parents.
Hmm.
I always resented my mother. I thought she was unkind and cruel. And there, of course, is that firing squad scene, one of my dreams in the book, about
Yes.
how when they said ready, aim, fire, she pushed us forward and bent down behind us. And as a kid, I didn't know what that meant, but
Right.
clearly I got it. What I realized is my mother needed to survive. Her survival ability was so fragile that the only way she could survive was sacrificing us. And I never really understood that as I was growing up. But I was helping a man one day do an oral history in a senior citizens group. And he had told us about being sent to Auschwitz when he was 16 years old. And because he was physically strong, they gave him an option to survive. They would give him a job to do that nobody else wanted to do. And if he would do that, they would give him some bread to live. And he was 65 at the time when he told us this story. We were recording oral histories. And he cried to the point that he had never told anybody what he had to do, how awful that was, how that informed his entire life. He was 16 years old. And the other people in the room gave him so much care, concern, and love. And they all said the same thing to him. Surviving was the most important thing that you could do.
Hmm.
You did what you needed to do to survive. And in reading the book and remembering that story, I just think my mother did what she needed to do to survive.
Yes.
That's how pathetic she was.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I can you hate somebody for that?
Right.
Look at me. I mean, I'm more than that. So somehow I got something good from these two people.
Yeah. Yes. You are clearly thriving. That's who you are now.
Thank you.
God bless therapy. God bless. I am so
I
great.
call myself a self-help junkie, Jean. It's not only therapy. Give me any book, any webinar, anything that I can listen to. I do the homework in the books. I'm like, school was one of my favorite places to be. It was a safe place, you know? So I want to learn everything that I can. And if my learning about what my parents had happened to them makes sense to other people, I'm grateful. But it really helped me too. It helped me let go of a lot of the guilt and shame, really.
Yes.
I mean, I'm going to be 80 in less than 2 weeks. I mean, it's a good life, and I want to be able to enjoy what I have left, but I
Yes.
don't want to take it with me. I
Yes.
want to share what I learned so that I can shine this light in some really dark places.
Yes. And I want to tell those of you who are watching and listening to Babs that she's such a good writer. She is such a good writer. I have, although I will read anyone's book, I have turned down books that, because I just can't in good conscience, because this is a program about writing. Um, it was wonderful. The writing is spare, it is elegant, it is clear. There is no wasted anything. There's no reaching for pathos, reaching for the reader's emotions. You just tell your story, and it's really quite remarkable. Um, and
Thank you for that because I don't hear a lot of that. And I compare myself to all these wonderful literary giants, you
oh, I
know.
know. Believe me, I know. As a first-time writer of memoir, I know exactly. I sort of shrink up, thinking, yeah, but yeah, well, you need to know that, and I do hope you'll go on to write more because I think you have more to say. I
Well, I
mean,
have two more memoirs. Obviously, this one ends at age 29,
yes,
but it's taken a lot. It really has. And my goal is to get out and talk, to
yes.
speak to as many people as I can
I hope
and
you can get a
help them on their journey. Right.
good, good. Babs, thank you. Thank you. This has flown by. I didn't cover half of the questions I was going to ask you about it, but I like the way the conversation evolved. So, I'm
Well, you could always invite me back, Jean. We can
there you
continue.
go.
Yes.
Well, you got to get that second one out there so we can cover the next however years. Because really, because it did end at 29, but then I felt like I wanted more. I
Mhm.
wanted to know how the healing process went, in your life. And so, yeah, so please come out with book two. I would appreciate that.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are listening, watching, I hope you've really enjoyed Babs. Oh, Babs, oh, tell them how they can get your book for starters.
Well, it's available for pre-order right now, and it's very helpful to me if people
It's
do
still on
pre-order.
pre-order. Oh, I didn't even realize
It
that.
doesn't come out until June 17th.
Okay.
And I don't know, I mean, you deal with women writers, so the way that Amazon's algorithm works is the more pre-orders a book has, the more they think it's going to be successful and they move it into a more prominent spot. So if anybody's thinking about getting the book, it really helps if you order it beforehand. You can get it at Barnes and Noble, you can get it at Amazon, you can get it at any local indie bookstore. And if a budget is an issue, order it from your library,
Hmm. So they can pre-order it through Barnes and Noble or any of the brick and mortar stores
the
also.
online, right?
Great, great.
And then it'll be delivered to them the day that it comes out.
And do you have a website?
I do. It's babswalters.com. Pretty easy.
Pretty
All one
easy.
word. Yes. I have a YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/, is that a backslash? I'm not really sure.
Oh, word.
At Facing the Jaguar.
Uh-huh. Okay. That sounds great.
And
And
I have,
does
I will
Walter
put
have an
your,
S on the end? Your last
yes,
name, Walters.
Babs and Walters both have an S.
Okay. Okay. And you were going to say something about,
Oh, I was going to say when you send me this video, I will put it on my YouTube channel and people
right,
can find it there too.
right. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Babs. Thank you. And thank you all for being here. I hope you've enjoyed Babs and enjoyed hearing about Facing the Jaguar. And if you have any of the similarities in your life to what we've been talking about, I think Babs and I would join together in saying, tell someone,
Mhm.
talk to someone, talk about it, talk it through. It's not magic, the therapy, but oh my goodness, it is supportive and helpful to have you understand what has happened to you and its effects on you. So that's it. Thank you. Come back next time.